There's a little election with big stakes happening tomorrow in Adams Township, Michigan. That's a conservative town where former President Trump won by over 80% in 2020. Tomorrow's vote is a recall election for the township's clerk, but it's also a test of the strength of Trump's election lies. NBC's Gary Grumbach traveled to the town and has more.
In a town without traffic lights, with flags of all stripes, is where we met up with four women, best friends, who are fed up.
I just don't think anybody trusts our township anymore.
If people don't speak up and stop it, I don't know. I don't know.
Janice, Gail, Beverly, and Bonnie say election denialism has divided their community.
This is the kind of garbage that happened in Nazi Germany.
I don't understand why we're worried about the 2020 election. Trump won here. Can anybody realize that?
We're not going to listen.
If there was crime, and you're a hypocrite.
With Township Clerk Stephanie Scott at the center of the storm.
This machine is suspect.
We're turned into Venezuela.
Scott, who has peddled in conspiracy theories related to recent elections, is under criminal investigation by the state of Michigan after the state says she failed to have election equipment properly maintained and refused to hand over to the State Bureau of Investigations a piece of a voting machine. As a result, the state took away her ability to run elections in 2021. She spoke to NBC News in her first television interview, where she denied she did anything wrong.
We have a Secretary of State that started a witch hunt against me because I started asking questions about the elections.
Those questions, she says, revolve around voter rolls in Michigan.
All I was doing was trying to take on this clerk position, run fair elections, make sure the data was accurate, and I was doing my job.
A review of Scott's Facebook page also revealed repeated references to QAnon, an outlandish conspiracy theory popular among the far right. When did you first hear of QAnon?
It has nothing to do with anything on this election. It has absolutely nothing to do with this position.
The four women, lifelong conservatives themselves, don't buy Scott's claims of election fraud. So they went home to home, collecting hundreds of signatures to prompt a recall election.
If you don't like something, either shut up or do something about it.
And these ladies did something about it, selecting neighbor and friend Susie Roberts to run against Scott.
I've known Susie since she was born, and she's a go-getter. She's very trustworthy.
So why have you decided to run in this recall election?
Because someone had to. Someone had to do it.
What does a Susie Roberts run township clerkship look like?
The most boring township meetings ever. There'll be no drama.
Adams Township is just one example of a town turned upside down by election denialism and conspiracy theories. Just 19% of Republicans who voted for former President Trump in 2020 believed the election was legitimate. And those beliefs are taking center stage in the state, with the Michigan GOP recently selecting far-right election denier and conspiracy theorist Christina Caramo to run the state party's apparatus.
There's a bit of a state of chaos, I'd say, right now when it comes to the Republican Party in Michigan. It's unclear exactly which direction it's going to head going forward.
If you're going to lie, you have to be confronted about it, in my opinion. I mean, it's just wrong. And somehow this nation's got to turn that around, figure out how we make it wrong again, instead of letting them spew their grievances.
The women have a warning for others.
If it can happen in our little township, Adams Township, it can happen in your township, anybody's township.
NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach joins me now live. What a great report, Gary. And you captured not just what's happening in that town, but I think all across the country, which is part of what makes it so fascinating. You can feel the emotion in those meetings. This is a township that went 80% for former President Trump in 2020. Why are you seeing this groundswell of people now rejecting election denialism? And did you get a sense of which way this might go?
So they're just tired of it. You heard it in the piece. They're tired of it. They've lived there their entire lives. They're between 70 and 93 years old, the four women I talked to. And the woman, Stephanie Scott, who's the current clerk, moved there 3 years ago into town. And so she's sort of an outsider. These folks don't trust her. They want to be back to the way it was. In terms of how we think it may go tomorrow, this is a very small town. It was the talk of the town. We walked into the breakfast place. Everyone was talking about the election happening tomorrow. And their turnout was sky high in 2020. We do expect turnout to be very high again. They got more than 300 recall petition signatures on their recall petition.
Wow. And again, you can just feel how fired up everyone is in that town. In terms of the implications more broadly, if Stephanie Scott is actually charged, she would be the second elected clerk nationally to face some type of criminal investigation for being a part of this election denialism. What would the broader implications be, do you think?
Well, I think it shows that if the Secretary of State sends you 4 or 5 letters saying, hey, please do this, you really need to do this if you're the township clerk in charge of maintaining the election material. It also says you probably can't tamper with the election material if the Secretary of State says you can't do that. And so I think there's a lot about just following the law, following the rules, just like the women said there. What happens here in Adams Township, Michigan, could happen anywhere.
And just very quickly, it was a little contentious, this interview you did.
It was. See, Stephanie Lambert is the name of the lawyer for Stephanie Scott. She is somebody who has gotten really into Michigan politics and election denialism post-2020. Even before 2020, she was just a regular defense attorney in Detroit. Now she's really turned into somebody who has really turned into these election conspiracies and somebody who has a lawyer herself because she's involved in a number of lawsuits related to the 2020 election.
All right. Well, such great stuff, such great reporting. Thank you for bringing it to us. We really appreciate it, Gary.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.